moment. Great to have you here. So welcome to our monthly Elevate Your Recovery webinar. Today's webinar is meant to be informative. So it's going to be a little bit different than how I usually run the webinars. Usually I do more of a workshop style approach, but I really wanted to support you in learning more about recovery life coaching. So our webinar is going to be much more informative. So I've got a couple of links here for you. One is the worksheet that accompanies the webinar. So if you want to follow along, fill in the blanks, answer the questions on the worksheet, you can do that. I'm going to be going over the worksheet at the very end of the webinar. So don't worry if you miss something. I'll be taking us through that to make sure that we recap and that you have all the answers there. And then I've also provided a link to the slides. Because we're live streaming, the slides can get blurry at times. Therefore, I've provided you a copy of the slides so that you can look at those if you need to. And at the very end, I'm going to open it up for question and answer. So if you have any questions, comments, make a note of those along the way, because I really, really want to support you in just I want to be present for you and your questions. So if there's anything that you want to know about recovery life coaching, I am definitely here to share that with you. I'm very transparent with my own process, and I'm very transparent about my experience as a recovery life coach. So, feel free to ask any questions that you want. So today we're going to be talking about recovery life coaching. For those that don't know me, my name's Beverly Sartain, and I'm the owner of Recovery Life Management. And a bit of my backstory is that I've got 10 years of recovery, so I just celebrated 10 years this year. I'm someone who's never relapsed, so it took me a long time to decide to recover, but when I did, I haven't relapsed since. And I studied spiritual psychology, which supported me in recovering from substance abuse, from mental health, and trauma issues. And I then became a certified substance abuse counselor. And now I have my own business as a recovery life coach. And I specialize in spirituality and helping other people start up their own recovery coaching business. So my recovery has been alternative. So I enjoy helping soulful men and women find their unique path to recovery so that they can live a conscious and a peaceful and a very enjoyable life while sharing their purpose with the world. So that's just a bit about me. Let me go back here and see. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Got a few more people that have come on. I'm going to be using the slides today from Recovery Coaches International. So these actually are not my slides. These are slides that were created by the president of Recovery Coaches International. But I wanted to share their slides with you because they, they go very in depth into what recovery life coaching is. And I think they're just a really great outline. So, it's very common to hear of all these different roles and responsibilities that people have in the recovery community. So I'm sure you've probably heard of a sponsor. You've probably heard of a recovery coach. I know you've probably heard of a therapist. And then there's this thing called recovery life coaching. So I really want to support you today in understanding more about these different roles and when you would utilize them. So sponsors, have to do with 12-step programs, be it AA, NA, or some other 12-step program. And it's usually a peer support person that is supporting that person and working through the 12 steps. So there's different responsibilities that come with that than with some of these other support people. The big one that people get very confused about is recovery coaches and recovery life coaches. So a recovery coach is usually somebody who is either paid or on a volunteer basis. They've gone through a treatment facility and they've gone through the program successfully, and now they're on the other side where they have a little bit of clean time and they're going to support other people that are going through this specific program. And recovery coaches usually focus on case management, so helping people find housing, helping people find a job, and that's really what most recovery coaches do. And then a therapist, is somebody that deals a lot more with the past. They deal with a lot more emotional and mental work that somebody would have to go through. So we're going to be talking more about when these support people are the best people for you to be using as a resource, and when a recovery life coach is the best person for you to be using as a resource. So it's my intention by the end of the webinar that you have a better understanding of what a recovery life coach is and what these other roles do as well. So let's jump in here. So a recovery life coach is a professional. So usually recovery life coaches, they go through a very extensive training. My personal training to become a recovery life coach was a year long, and then I did another 4-month program as well. So we're definitely professionals. Some of us have degrees. So I happen to have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, but not every recovery life coach does. So if education is really important to you, then if you were to hire a recovery life coach, you would want to ask about that. You would want to ask about their background, their education, their credentials, and their experiences as a professional and their personal experiences. A recovery life coach is also somebody, that's going to partner with people who are considering recovery or are currently recovering from an addiction. So I really like recovery life coaching because I feel like it can be used anywhere in the system of care. And so what I mean by the system of care is, any access point of where somebody would come into the system. So for some people, that's a detox. For some people, that's a rehab. For other people, that might be an intensive outpatient. It might be a hospital. I really feel like recovery life coaches can support somebody at the beginning of their recovery, in the middle of their recovery, and at the end of their recovery when they're really in that maintenance stage. So I think it's a good thing to think about if you ever have people coming to you and they need some resources. A recovery life coach may be a good fit for them. So there's lots of benefits. I actually feel like raising awareness, creating clarity, and moving people to outcome-oriented and solution-based action, I feel like those are all benefits as well. And one of my favorite things about recovery life coaching is that it's super solution-focused. So it's always about what's going on today, and how can you move yourself forward. And so, of course, we talk about the past a little bit. We talk about any blocks that the person's having. We talk about resistance. But all of those things are discussed in service to moving forward. So it's very action-oriented. It's very, solution-focused. And I love that. And a lot of my clients love that because they want to feel like they're moving forward in life. They want to feel like they're getting ahead in life and that they're not just sitting in their feelings or their thoughts. They want to feel like they're progressing. And so coaching is really supportive of that. Some very specific benefits just include people seeing really great results in a lot of areas of their life. And that's another thing that I really enjoy about coaching is that you can focus on your recovery and coaching, but the whole intention is that your entire life improves. And so I love that we can focus on recovery and that extends to our careers, our lives, and different things that we have going on in our lives. So the coaching partnership is really important. So when you think of partnership, you think of two people coming together, and the coaching partnership is very much about that we're on the same playing field. So whereas maybe in therapy, people feel like the therapist is a bit of an authority to them, when it comes to the coaching partnership, we're on the same level. And that is an experience that's very supportive to a lot of people. And that's why a lot of people really like engaging coaching. So it's an ongoing professional relationship where the clients are held by coaches as creative and resourceful. And this is really important because, coaching is not about fixing anybody. Coaching is not about just needing to get people to a certain place. Coaching is really about focusing on the client and supporting them in their own creative solution and supporting them in tapping into their own inner strengths. And so it's a very empowering process that people go through. And the coach is the person that's really holding this space and seeing the client as creative and resourceful, that they have all the inner resources that they need to make choices, and so that's really what the process is about. Another thing that's important to note about the coaching partnership is that the client is the focus and they choose the focus of the conversation. So when I meet with clients, they bring the agenda. The client creates the agenda of what we're going to talk about. So a pretty typical session for me, I start off with wins so that the person can start getting into the habit of acknowledging and praising the wins that are happening in their life. And then we move on to challenges so that we can talk through any challenges that happened that week for them. And then I would ask them, you've mentioned X, Y, and Z as challenges. Is that, are any of those what you want to coach on today? Or is there something else that you would want to coach on? And so the client says what they want to coach on, and then we go from there. So it's very, it's directed by the client. It's not directed by the coach. And then, of course, that this partnership supports the client in deepening their learning, improving their performance, and enhancing their own quality of life. There's tons of benefits that come from this experience. And I happen to be somebody that gets coached often. I actually have 3 coaches right now for different things. And, just being held accountable each week, having to show up each week, being held accountable to the action steps that I created for myself that I was going to follow through on. It's just a very powerful experience to go through when you're being supported by people, and that support is about moving forward to whatever your desired outcome is. And so I personally have seen, myself be able to start a business with paying clients in 3 months. I've just had some remarkable experiences that happened really quickly. And the reason they happened quickly was because I was so committed to the process, and the process really supported me in moving forward. So here we're still on emphasis of coaching partnership. The emphasis is really on meeting the client where they're at now. And it's not, like I said, about getting them somewhere. It's not about the coach thinking they need to be somewhere different than they are now. It's about meeting that person where they're at, really getting in touch with what they want for their life. And I love this, especially when it comes to supporting people in recovery. I'm just a firm believer that, we support people by allowing them to have choice in what their recovery process looks like. And so this is very much just about letting the person share about what they desire right now, what it is that they want to achieve in the next 3 to 6 months. And then, with this partnership, what gets accomplished is just this increased awareness of responsibility, choices, and action. And so, of course, these qualities are really important qualities when it comes to the recovery process. So learning how to take responsibility for yourself, it supports you engaging the process. When you're responsible for how far you go or how far you don't go, it supports you in moving forward. And then just always wanting people to know that they have choice and that they take action. You know, there's just, I think action is one of the biggest things that I enjoy about coaching, is that it's all about taking action. And if you don't take action, then we talk through what's holding you back from taking the action that you want to be taking. So it's a very supportive process. The basic tenets of recovery life coaching, you know, we always assume the innate health and wholeness in a client. So this is similar to what I was sharing before. So just always seeing people as whole and complete, you know, having everything that they need within themselves to make choices for themselves, and then to receive feedback and then make a different choice. If they don't like the feedback that they're receiving, then they can make a different choice. And supporting them in the learning that comes up when we make choices and then we receive feedback from those choices. So it's very much centered on that person, you know, checking in with themselves, going inward, and coming up with their own solutions. So, you know, there's other roles in recovery that can kind of breed some codependency on the support person. And I love coaching because I really feel like as a recovery life coach, we're really supporting the person in relying on themselves, you know, and we're there to support them as they have their learnings from the choices they make, but we're not directing that. We're not telling them what to do. We're, you know, checking in with them, listening to them of what they say that they want to do. So another tenet is that recovery life coaching is strengths-based. So there's a lot of focus on what your strengths are. You know, so this is in support of getting clear about what your values are, really getting clear about what gifts you have, what talents you have, which are your assets, and focusing on your strengths instead of always focusing on what's wrong or what needs to be fixed or what needs to be healed. Because, you know, when we always focus on the bump in the road, then our mindset is just always looking for the negative. Our mindset is always looking for something bad or negative to happen. So in coaching, we're shifting more into possibility, and we're shifting more into the potential of things. And so it's a different mindset. Another tenet is that, you know, the client knows their values and goals better than anybody. I always say this, you know, like, you know yourself better than anybody. And I always ask powerful questions to just get people to tap into their own insight. I mean, we really have like a lot of insight and awareness about our own process. I mean, oftentimes I ask people, you know, what might get in the way of you accomplishing this action step? And they know immediately what might get in the way. You know, and so just having that sounding board and being able to talk through it and then coming up with a creative solution if that issue does arise for them is really, really helpful. And it shows the person like, hey, you know yourself very well. You do know yourself. And so we just need to come up with some ways that you can support yourself when these negative thoughts come in or when this sabotage happens, so that you can make a different choice. And then, you know, recovery life coaching, it really just, it promotes healthy lifestyle. I mean, it really promotes this connection with yourself and supports you in building a lot of trust with yourself and focusing on your strengths within yourself, so that you get to practice making choices and seeing what happens from those choices, so that you know that, yes, I can make good choices for myself. Because that's always an issue I see with people in recovery, especially in the early stages, just this distrust and this mistrust of the self, because we've made so many choices that, you know, created shame and created guilt for us, that we started to believe that we can't trust ourselves. And there's some other, you know, support people and support roles where they really pride themselves on making people believe that they can't trust themselves and that they have to go to other people to be guided, you know? And so recovery life coaching is really about supporting the person in reconnecting with themselves, reconnecting with their own personal power, reconnecting with their values, their gifts, and starting to live life from those things so that they can strengthen themselves. So what recovery life coaching does not, so what this is not, and this one's really big for me. Recovery life coaching does not promote or endorse one particular way of achieving or maintaining sobriety. So recovery life coaches are open to people finding their own unique path to recovery. And, I've got tons of good examples of that in my own coaching practice. I work alongside a lot of therapists. I work alongside a lot of psychiatrists. And, they will send somebody to me that is going to therapy and that they're doing some deep emotional work, but this person needs some extra support in between sessions for their recovery issues. And so that's a way that I work with other people in the community. And I have somebody that, was seeing a therapist, was using me for recovery life coaching, and then he was attending SMART meetings as well as part of his recovery practice. So we're all unique, and my own personal story is that I didn't go to rehab. I didn't do a 12-step program. And so I did therapy, and then I ended up 6 months into my sobriety doing a 2-year master's degree program in spiritual psychology, which is where my transformation happened. And so I'm just very open about, supporting people that want it to look a different way than what's out there right now. And I think it's really important that people know that they can put together a recovery practice that's unique to them, that works for them, and that they can get sober and they can maintain their sobriety through that kind of an avenue. So there's a time and a place, of course, for treatment and for AA. So I have no beef with any of that. It's just sometimes that level of care is not where it's at for people. Going to rehab it just wasn't the appropriate level of care for me. I was working as a manager and had a full-time job, and I wanted to be able to maintain all that while I healed and recovered, and I did. But sometimes people do need to go to a rehab, and that's the right thing for them. So a recovery life coach is really great in supporting you in figuring out, what is the right combination for you. So, a recovery life coach does not promote one particular way. And then a recovery life coach does not address past issues or trauma. So what this means is, this is where a therapist would come into play. A recovery life coach is not somebody who's going to do deep emotional trauma work or deep emotional work with you on your past. So if you're somebody who has never addressed your past issues, and that there's a lot there for you and that it's going to be emotional and it's going to be really challenging, then a recovery life coach would not be the person to go to. You would want to see a therapist. And I just gave some examples of how a recovery life coach could be used in combination with therapy. So some more of these do not. Recovery life coaches do not tell their clients what to do or how to do it. They do not diagnose an addiction. So again, this is going to be a therapist, this is going to be a psychiatrist, this is going to be a substance abuse counselor. Those people diagnose an addiction. A recovery life coach does not diagnose anybody. And then when it says here, a recovery life coach does not treat an addiction per se. So again, like a substance abuse counselor, a therapist, or going to rehab, they're going to treat an addiction. They're going to specifically treat you around an addiction. A recovery life coach is not going to do that. They're going to work with you in regards to how you're going to move forward in your life as a recovering person. So there is a big difference here. If you feel like, you need some time away and you need to really dig into the addiction and again, if you have never gotten any help with that before, and this is the first time, then a recovery life coach is probably not going to be the best fit for you. You're going to want to go to see a therapist or go to rehab. And a recovery life coach does not dictate what recovery will look like for you. So we've kind of talked about that already. So recovery life coach can do what any professional life coach can do. So that's why the word life coach is in recovery life coach, because we're life coaches. We're life coaches that specialize in recovery. I also specialize in spirituality because of my education and my background. So we do what a professional life coach does. We just specialize in recovery. And there's all different kinds of recovery life coaches, I should probably add too. There's people that I know that are recovery life coaches, they specialize in sex addiction. There's people that are recovery life coaches, they specialize in eating disorders and recovery. There's people I know that are working with people specifically around gambling, or, you know, just there's all different kinds of recovery life coaches. And so it's really important to get clear about what you need. You know, are you somebody who's just starting off in recovery? Because there's oftentimes people that specialize in that. And then there's other people who specialize in working with people when they're leaving treatment, or people that have been in recovery for a very long time. So just, you know, getting really clear on who it is that you would want to work with. And I always suggest that if you ever want to hire a recovery life coach, that you always look into several different people, and that you have conversations with all of these people, and that you ask whatever questions you need to ask to feel comfortable with that person. Because, you know, that's why I talked so much about the coaching partnership. It's a very important partnership to have with somebody. So there's got to be rapport there. There's got to be trust that's built there. And so that doesn't necessarily just happen with the first person that you reach out to. And I've had my own experience of having to reach out to several people before I found the person that I wanted to get coached by. So recovery life coaches, they help you improve personally and professionally. And that was something that was really important to me, because I've done so much deep inner work and personal work, and I love personal work, and personal development is just something I love. I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. But also my professional endeavors are really important to me. And so I really, really enjoy coaching, because I feel like it really touches on both. It touches on, you know, my personal life and my professional life. And both of those things are really important to me. So like I was mentioning on the last slide, recovery life coaches can support you in seeking treatment. You know, so whenever somebody reaches out to me, if they're not the right fit for me, meaning they're just at a place where they need a different level of care, I always support that person in getting to the resources that they need. You know, so I have conversation with them, and then I help connect them with where they need to get to. So, you know, recovery life coaches do that. They're in support of you finding the right level of care for yourself. And if that's not with that particular person, then, you know, a recovery life coach would be supporting you in finding what that looks like. And for some people, that means they need to go to treatment. You know, a great example is if somebody's detoxing, right? If somebody is detoxing, they need to potentially be somewhere to have a safe detox. That would not be a good fit for a recovery life coach at that time, you know, because a recovery life coach is not going to be able to do anything for you when it comes to your detox. But they can certainly support you in getting to detox or getting to a treatment facility where a detox would be possible. And then, of course, a recovery life coach, like I'm saying, supports you in exploring your recovery and your treatment. And we're really big on you creating a recovery that fits and works for you. And so there are recovery coaches that focus on moderation management. There's recovery coaches that focus on harm reduction. I happen to be a coach that's very open to people trying moderation if that's the route that they want to go. So again, you know, this is about what you want your recovery to be, and then finding support people to help you do that. So recovery life coaches do facilitate the opportunity for people to explore their wants, needs, and choices, to gain clarity and move into action. I can't tell you how many people I work with that we start to explore needs, and it's like the first time that they've ever really thought about their own needs. Especially when people come out of the fog and the haze of using substances, it's like getting reacquainted with yourself. So it's, you know, sometimes the first time in a long time that we're really checking in with, what is it that I want for myself? What is it that I like? What is it that I need? Because there's been such a disconnect in the substance use. It's like an exploration that happens for people. And, you know, we support people by asking questions. So they're called powerful questions. And again, it's about supporting the person where they're at and asking them powerful questions so that they can get clarity of how they want to move forward. And we offer reflection. Reflections can be a verbatim reflection. A reflection could be a summary of what they said, or an inference of what the coach thinks that they're trying to say, with a check-in to make sure that you're understanding them correctly. So oftentimes this coaching partnership becomes really, you know, fertile ground for great communication, for that person to learn how to be really honest with themselves and just say what's true for them, and know that the person that's supporting them is just going to hold a non-judgmental, safe and loving space for them. And the power in that is just, it's incredible. I mean, I have so many of my clients say that the number one thing that they enjoy about me is how non-judgmental I am when they're sharing about their own experience. And that can seem so basic to somebody, but that's their biggest takeaway, is that they can just be real and raw and authentic, and that they're received, they are accepted. And by holding that kind of space for somebody, then they can start to receive and accept themselves. And that's, you know, that's just an incredible experience. So we're always holding that the client is whole and resourceful. And then, of course, on a very similar line, you know, fostering this belief that the clients are capable of choosing what is best for them at this time. You know, so the more that they can make choices and be supported while they receive the feedback from those choices and take different action and learn from that, the more they become aware and strengthen that part of themselves that already knows that they're capable of making good choices for themselves. You know, for so long, when we're in our addiction, we just feel like we don't make good choices for ourselves. We're never going to be able to make good choices for ourselves. So it's an empowering experience to start to feel really capable. So Recovery Coaches International, like I said, I'm using their slides right now. It's a pioneering and innovative organization, and it's designed by a worldwide team of coaches, specifically recovery life coaches. You know, obviously their mission is to advance, promote, and provide strength-based coaching to the addiction recovery community. And they also just, you know, want to offer support and education to other members of the RCI. RCI objectives: to build a community of recovery life coaches. So recovery life coaching, you know, it hasn't been around for that long compared to some of the other coaching. So I'm real big on the online world, and there's tons of health coaches and business coaches and marketing coaches, right? But I don't see a lot of recovery life coaches. And then if I see any other recovery type of coaches, it's always recovery coaches, which is a bit different, like I said, where they're just doing case management. So The recovery life coaching community it's really not that big of a community. The RCI is a great website to check out. I think one of the remaining slides here has some more information on them. And I definitely recommend going to their website because there's a cool coach finder on the website. So if you're ever looking for a coach, you can check out the RCI for that. And another myth I just wanted to bust real quick while I was thinking about the RCI is oftentimes people think that coaches, that you have to be face-to-face, and that's simply not true. In fact, I only have one face-to-face client, and the rest of my clients live throughout the United States. And I actually have 2 people in Canada and 2 people in the UK as well. So technology is just been awesome. It's really, you know, I do a lot of stuff online. That's kind of the world that I live on. And so what I mean by that is like online, you know, meetings, and I have a coaching group that I do via phone and online, and, you know, just we're able to reach more people that way. And so if you think that a recovery coach has to be somebody that you meet with in person, that's not necessarily true. If you feel like you really, that's the only way you want to do it, then you can try to find somebody in your area. And again, the RCI, you know, will be a support to that. But I would just, you know, suggest perhaps checking out some other people and seeing what kind of results they get. And, you know, I work by the phone, and I also work via video conferencing if people feel like they want to see me. So there's ways to get around that seeing the other person piece if that's really, really important to you. So just some more benefits of recovery life coaching. You know, that you get this roster of resources and strategies, and that's all in support to changing what you want to change and really making changes in all these different areas of your life. You know, it's not just about recovery. And I always try to support people in thinking beyond recovery. You know, I feel like recovery is just an expression of ourselves. And so, you know, and so are all these different areas of our life. So it's like, I want to show up my best self in my relationships. I want to show up my best self when I'm working. I want to show up my best self when I'm, you know, interacting with myself, you know, and how I'm treating myself and my self-care and my recovery practice. I want to show up my best self in all the areas of my life. And that's really what we do in coaching is, you know, we focus in on one area that then is going to trickle over and support these other areas. You get this better understanding of yourself, of, you know, what your values are, what your choices are, what decisions you want to make. And it's all about connecting with your true self. And what you really want, you know, what is your desired state? I can't tell you how many times I ask somebody what they want in the next 3 to 6 months, and they have a really hard time articulating it, you know? So it's like, sometimes we're not connected with what we truly want because we think we can't have it for some reason. And that ecology has to be worked out so that we can be our best selves. And if that ecology doesn't get worked out, we see, you know, that perfectionism, procrastination, resistance, spinning wheels, sabotage, you know, all of those behaviors are really just our system's way of saying, like, we're out of alignment here. Like, what is it that we really want, and how do we get in alignment with that? Support and accountability. I'd say this is my favorite benefit. I see it in my own experience. I'm right now part of a health group, a health conscious group. And the accountability that I get from that group of having to check in, having to answer certain questions, like, it's just, there's nothing like it. I know I wouldn't be where I'm at right now with my health if it wasn't for that accountability piece. So it's a really, really important piece to have that accountability, to show up and to follow through with what we said that we were going to follow through with. And then just, you know, another fantastic benefit is just this self-discovery piece, which I think is what recovery is all about, is reconnecting with your true self, and that you can go on this awesome, amazing adventure of just discovering yourself again and discovering who you want to be in this life, in this world, and how you want to show up, and that you can start making choices that are in alignment with that and see some really great results and start to feel better about who you're being. Here's that information I was sharing with you about Recovery Coaches International. You can check them out online. So recovery coaching, recovery life coaching to me is just, it's a fantastic career, and it's been so enjoyable to me. I'm so proud of myself for creating my own business and going for it, and it's been such a great learning in so many different ways. And I feel like when you get to these later stages in your recovery process, like for me right now, it's about self-expression, and my business is really, it's my self-expression. And you know, I want to help other people express themselves and live purposefully and take their recovery to the next level, you know. And if for you that means just starting off, then that's what it means. And for other people, that means reevaluating where they're at in their recovery process and seeing what's working and what's not, and taking it to the next level. And then for other people that have been in the recovery game for a long time, it's about, how can I make a great impact in this world? How can I be of service in a really big way? And I feel like that service comes through who we're being as a person, and then how that gets expressed outwardly. So let me take you through the worksheet real quick to make sure you got all the answers. So you have this all completed and filled out. And then I would be glad to open up the line for any questions or comments or thoughts. So the first question, a recovery life coach is a professional. True. Number 2, coaches see clients as creative and resourceful. 3, the coaching partnership focuses on increasing awareness of responsibility, choices, and actions. 4, coaching utilizes a strength-based approach, which enables a client to find and utilize their values, assets, and strengths during the coaching process. Number 5, recovery life coaching promotes one way of achieving or maintaining sobriety. False. Number 6, a recovery life coach will not be diagnosing an addiction. Number 7, recovery life coaches can support clients in improving their professional and personal endeavors. True. Number 8, recovery life coaches believe that their clients are capable of choosing what is best for them at this time. Number 9, the RCI, or Recovery Coaches International, is a pioneering and innovative organization designed by worldwide recovery life coaches. And then number 10, it said just to list one benefit of coaching. And I, of course, wrote down support and accountability, because I think for me, that's just the biggie, and I hear that one so much from my other clients. All right, so that's what I've got for you in regards to sharing about recovery life coaching. I'm hoping that you could see some of the differences between what a sponsor does, a therapist does, and what just a regular recovery coach would do. You're gonna hear those names interchanged a lot. It just is the way it is. Some people say recovery life coach, and then other people say recovery coaching when they're talking about a recovery life coach. So now that you know that there's this difference, you just have to ask questions. So if somebody starts to talk about case management, and then you're going to know that it's a recovery coach that you know, probably went through that treatment facility and that program, and they're supporting other people's in a peer-based way, versus a recovery life coach is an actual life coach and professional that supports people. You know, it is a life coach that specializes in recovery and can specialize in some other things too. So you just have to ask questions to make sure that you are finding the right person, the right fit for you, or for somebody that you are you know, passing on a resource to. All right, so I'm gonna go to the chat box. Linda, which one were you curious about? Yeah, so if anybody has a question, feel free to write it in the chat box. Number 3, number 4, on what? Oh, the answers? Yeah, so number 3 is the coaching partnership focuses on increasing awareness of responsibility, choices, and actions. Yeah, I got you. Linda's always my studious one. So I got your back. We will get these answered. So the coaching partnership focuses on increasing awareness of responsibility, choices, and actions. And then the coaching utilizes a strength-based approach. A strength-based approach. So where we focus on your strengths. So any other thoughts or questions from anybody? So I know some of the people on the call today are people that either have a coach or are interested in getting a coach. And then we also have some people on the call today that are interested in becoming a recovery life coach. No worries. No, I appreciate your engagement. I appreciate that you want to know the answers to the questions. So glad you're here, as always. Always a joy to be with you. So, for me, go ahead and write in the chat box if you have any questions, comments. I love to hear from you guys. I really want you to know that your voice is important to me. Your thoughts are important to me. And I will just share a quick little story about my own process. I was a substance abuse counselor. I was working at a nonprofit treatment facility. I became the clinical supervisor there. And I was kind of at a crossroads. Jeannie, I'll answer that in 1 second. I'm kind of talking about that right now too. I was at this crossroads because I was living in Florida, and Florida's pretty mainstream where it's like, you become a therapist. That's kind of what you do when you become a social worker, you become a therapist if you are in the line of work that I was doing. But it never resonated with me. I didn't want to support people and only going into the past and kind of ruminating into the past. And trust me, I've done therapy and it was incredibly helpful. So I'm not trying to knock therapy. I'm just trying to speak to where I was at and what I wanted to help people with, right? There's fantastic therapists that it's needed. It's a needed role. And I'm so glad that it was there for me because it really supported me in my recovery. But when I thought about how I wanted to support people, and when I looked at my own skill set, then I decided, no, I want to support people in the solution. I want to support people in moving beyond their blocks and moving beyond the resistance and moving beyond getting stuck. And so that's when I started to look into coaching. And interestingly enough, all of the doors to coaching just completely swung open for me, and the doors to becoming a therapist started to close. And for me, that's just a clear indicator and sign that, what I'm supposed to do. So Jeannie says, what background should your coach have? So it's an interesting question, Jeannie, because it really depends on the coach. Right? So right now I have a health coach, I have a marketing coach, and I have a business coach, right? And so their backgrounds are going to vary, right? Depending on what it is that I want them to support me with. So this is what I was saying earlier is it important to you how educated this person is? Is it important to you how credentialed this person is? If that is important to you, then you would ask that person those questions, or is it more important to you what results that person gets? And so that's just a question you have to ask yourself, right? We're all different. Some people want to know that somebody had a certain education background or certain amount of training or, and if that's important to you, then I encourage you to ask that question. But I have found, and I've shared this with somebody else that asked me about this, I've actually never had anybody ask me about my education or about, my coaching training that I did. And so I thought that, it's pretty fascinating. People seem to be more interested in the results that you can get for them than they are about, what degree you have. But we're all different. So it's hard to say exactly what background the person should have. I think it's probably better that you check in with yourself and ask yourself what's important to you. Like for me, having good rapport with my coach is really important to me. To me, having somebody that's going to call me out when I am like in my stuff, that's important to me. To me, knowing that my coach has gotten significant results for other people and for themselves, because I'm a big walk your talk person. And so I have, one of the things people share with me always is, hey, you really walk your talk. I do all of the skills and the tools and the techniques that I share with people. I do all those things in my own life, right? And so I want to be around somebody else as a coach. I want to have a coach that walks their talk. They're living the principles that they're sharing with me. So any other thoughts on that, Jeannie, from what I've shared? Great question. So you can see how it depends on what, what kind of coach it is and what they're doing for you. My work with people tends to be more transformational. The work that I do with people is more inner work. And of course, we're using the outer world to kind of gauge what's going on for us. But obviously, the work I do with people is very different than like what a business coach would do or a marketing coach would do. So they're just going to be kind of fixated on different milestones than I would be working on with the person. And so, of course, when we're doing inner work, we're still doing outer work too, but we're just focusing more on what's going on inside of ourselves. Awesome, Jeannie. Thanks for being here. Any other questions or thoughts? Does everybody feel like pretty comfortable with understanding the different roles, like what a therapist would do, what a sponsor would do versus a recovery life coach? Yes, you don't have to have a degree in counseling to become a life coach. You would need to have a degree in counseling, Linda, if you wanted to become a therapist. So that's the difference. So a therapist has a master's degree in some type of counseling or marriage and family therapy, or social workers can be therapists, but they have to be licensed. So it's a different education background. You could become a life coach by going to a certain, training or certification class. And there's some people that don't even do a certification class for life coaching. So again, if that's important to you, you would ask. For me, I did a year-long certification in recovery life coaching, and then I did another 4-month program in coaching, transformational coaching method. I'm just a person that loves to learn, and I will be a lifelong learner and I will be a lifelong student, and I know I'm going to continue to take courses, and it's just who I am. Good, Eric. I'm glad the differences are clearer now. Yeah, it's really hard to understand the differences when, if you haven't heard them before. I can remember when I learned them, I was like, okay, now I get it. Now I can see, the different roles that people have. Oh, no problem. So I can just talk a little bit through that. So a therapist is going to be somebody, Linda, that works more in the past, So if you know, I have a lot of people that come to me that have a lot of trauma issues. And so I really have to gauge where they're at in their process. If there's somebody new to working on their trauma issues, I'm not going to be the right fit. They're going to need to do deeper work. They're going to need to get really emotional, go into that stuff, you know, go into the mental realm of what's going on around those issues and really be supported in digging into the past. That's not what a recovery life coach does. You know, we take people that, for me, for instance, you know, I've had severe issues with substances, mental health, and trauma, but I'm at a place now in my process to where I don't get thrown off by something. I don't have a really huge emotional reaction to, you know, things that are happening in my life the way that I did 10 years ago. And so I'm at a place now where, you know, I want to move forward, you know, that's what I want to do. And so I'm a very good fit for coaching because I want to move forward. I'm ready to move forward. Yes. Do I have blocks that come up? Yes. Do I have resistance that comes up? Yes. Do I have perfectionism that comes up sometimes? Yes. Right. So it's not that you have to be free of all of that. It's just there's a big difference in somebody that needs to go to therapy than somebody that could take on coaching. I have a lot of people that have been in therapy for a lot of years. And so that's why they come and do coaching, because they've done therapy for 10 or 15 years and they want something different. And so I actually coach even a licensed social worker, you know, and so she comes to me because she doesn't want to go do therapy. She knows all about that and she's done that before. And she's more about needing to, you know, actualize or move forward in some area of her life. And then that's what we work on. So that's kind of the difference between there. A sponsor for a 12-step program is, you know, more of a peer. There's somebody who's been through the 12 steps. There's somebody who's really active in the 12-step program. And then they're going to sponsor somebody who's newer, you know. They're going to sponsor somebody who's newer and wants that accountability and that support. But they're very focused on doing it a certain way and doing it with a certain method, you know, be it AA, NA, you know, whatever the 12-step program is. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to make sure that that's what's going to be the right fit for you, right? And then there's another role that's called a recovery coach. And recovery coach and recovery life coaching get intertwined all the time. So that's why I was saying at the end here that you just have to ask questions. You just have to ask questions to make sure you have an understanding of what this person does. So recovery coach tends to be somebody who has gone through a treatment facility program, and now they are going to support other peers that are going through that same program. And it's often either a paid job or a volunteer position. And they do case management work. They help the person find a job or help them find housing or something like that. And that's different than what a recovery life coach does, because a recovery life coach is an actual life coach that specializes in helping people around recovery or whatever other issues they're dealing with. Any other questions or thoughts? All right, guys, thanks for being here. We used up our full hour. Really appreciate it. So glad you could be here with me. This has actually been a really big joy. It's the first time I've talked through these slides. These are the Recovery Coaches International slides, and I've never done them before. So really helpful for me to talk through, and I hope this was helpful for you to understand a little bit more about what it is that I do with people. If there's any other questions, you know where to find me, guys. I'm wishing you a beautiful night. Bye-bye.